incredibly poor attempt to create a joint cinematic universe of all the Universal monsters that they were calling the Dark Universe. Well, what if I told you, in my best impression of Morpheus, that universe's presumable end goal of creating one big crossover flick that featured all of the Universal horror monsters was actually already achieved in a single movie over 3 decades ago. And in that very movie, there is a scene in which a small child kicks a werewolf in the dick and yells,
"Wolfman's got nards!"
That, my friends, is the Monster Squad. The Monster Squad is a comedy horror adventure film telling the story of a club of pre-teens with a collective love of all things monstrous. They spend their days being massive nerds, gatekeeping each other over monster trivia, keeping girls out of their boys-only treehouse, and arguing over pointless lore debates like, could the Wolfman drive a car? So you know, basically the same as internet fandoms now, except actually acceptable because these are literal children. Anyway, when these kids fall into possession of an ancient book written by legendary monster slayer Van Helsing that warns of a once every 100-year ritual involving a magical amulet that, if failed, could see the amulet destroyed and the world overtaken by creatures of the night, it's up to the gang to see the ritual through, facing off against Gillman, the Mummy, the Wolfman, Frankenstein's monster, and Dracula's brides, as well as Dracula himself, who has summoned this little army of campy creatures at this exact moment to destroy the amulet on the one day it is vulnerable, so that they may stop the only real threat to their existence and take over the world. This film is so much fun. Directed by Fred Dekker and co-wrote by the now extremely famous Shane Black, it's a proper 80s style childhood adventure flick delivered with the kind of magic and jovial wildness synonymous with the decade. It's filled with camp moody atmosphere and amazing practical creature designs put together by industry legend Stan Winston, who worked on... let me just check my notes here. I know it's here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. It says, everything you ever loved. Here he redesigns and reimagines the monsters of old in a way that absolutely feels in line with their original Universal aesthetics, but brings them up to date in ways that look so good, I'd argue that some of these new designs have actually become the image more synonymous with the idea of these creatures. Like, granted, not all of them. When I think of, Dracula or Frankenstein, I still think of Bela Lugosi's commanding presence in theatrics, or Boris Karloff's vacant, sad stare, before I think of anybody else. But when I think of Gillman or the Mummy, I kind of think of these guys before I think of these guys. I was actually shocked going back and watching Creature from the Black Lagoon and seeing just how much Gillman didn't look like this newer design. My memory had kind of filled in the blanks and replaced his image with a black and white version of something more resembling Winston's take on the creature. Much like its titular squad, this movie really loves the monsters it takes inspiration from, and treats them with the same level of campy respect that made them such icons in the first place. Granted, some of their characterizations are far removed from their original Universal brethren. Dracula here is more like a megalomaniacal Terminator than a distinguished Count, but the movie's focus is more on capturing the look and feel of the iconography rather than the stories, kind of becoming a sort of Super Smash Brothers of monster movies. You know, it doesn't make sense for Isabelle from Animal Crossing to beat 7 shades of shit out of Pikachu, but it is fun. And that's kind of the driving mantra of Monster Squad here. It just wants to give you a good time using iconic characters, not necessarily a sensical one. If you want to pedantically pick apart this movie CinemaSins style, you certainly can, but you'd be missing the point. How does Dracula know where all the other monsters are, and why are they all friends like some kind of evil Justice League? Who cares? It's cool. What have all the monsters been doing the past 100 years since the last failed ritual? I don't know, having a nap. They're here now, that's what matters. Why does Dracula have a custom designed ghost hearse with a special skeleton hood ornament? Because he's got taste, that's why. Shut up. Do you want to spend ages on meaningless lore explaining why all these characters know each other, or do you want to just accept the premise and watch a kid kick a werewolf in the dick? I'm team dick kick. Speaking of the kids, they're a really fun driving force for this whole narrative. I'd argue there's perhaps one or two too many of them, as a couple of the crew kind of melts into the background a little overpowered by the bigger personalities, but the bulk of them are memorable, surprisingly well acted, and honestly pretty funny. Also Rudy. Look at this introduction. It's as ridiculous and obnoxious as it is absolutely class. A match on the boot, man. Match on the boot. This guy steals the show. He gets all the creative kills, all the cool one-liners, all the signature good to outdo the bad. After all, despite the movie being a bit of a bomb on release, there's a reason it's become enough of a cult classic to not only leave a lasting legacy with its fans, but even get to the point that there's literally a documentary on its creation and surrounding fandom. I think what people gravitate to most about the film is how much, especially for a kids movie, it doesn't patronise. It's kind of violent, the kids swear and smoke and talk about things kids shouldn't, but in a way that probably reflected the reality children were experiencing a lot more than its contemporaries of the time. It's kinda like the Goonies' edgier cousin, who'd smuggled cigarettes into the playground and told all the other kids what sex was. Rad dude. Monster Squad was cool. And not just because Rudy wore a leather jacket, although that definitely plays a part. It was because it was dangerous in a way that other kids' films just weren't at the time. There was guns and guts and horror effects that didn't mess around. The settings were eerie and atmospheric and full of threats, but in that theme parky sort of hyper-real kind of way where it's just kitsch enough to be fun, but just scary enough that there's a palpable realness to it. It's the kind of movie a lot of parents probably hated. But that likely only made it more special in the eyes of the children who loved it. I mean, granted, it is fairly tame by the horror genre's standards, but to a kid whose only comparison point is maybe something like Scooby-Doo, this could have been a huge, eye-opening affair. The first dip of the toe into a genre that's always been mysterious to them, that they've only heard spoken about in whispered breaths and seen on the covers of VHSs in the store section that they're never allowed to rent from. To them, this was horror for the first time without the bubble wrap and without the safety gloves. And it's that little bit of edge and that little bit of danger that has aged it so well because it still even feels fresh by today's standards. Like, hell, there's even a moment that me as an adult in my 20s watching it was kinda shook by.
You sure know a lot about monsters.
Now that you mention it, I suppose I do.
I mean, Jesus. Don't get me wrong though, that genuinely quite surprising moment that would go over most younger kids' heads anyway aside, I'd say by today's standards, children probably see a lot worse on TikTok and YouTube. So if you're wanting to watch this with your family, it's ultimately a wholesome fun little monster movie where a bunch of nerdy friends, and one really cool one, get together to fight a parade of pop culture, and become a little braver and closer with their families and each other in the process. It even has a nice little cute friendship between Frankenstein and the little girl in the group that might entertain really young viewers. The only thing I'd say you need to watch out for if you're a parent is the way the narrative talks about and treats its women. Because Rudy being a peeping Tom and blackmailing young women with their nudes, that is a decidedly unradical look, my dude. I'd say use your own personal judgment. If you think your kids can handle it and will be able to understand that some of the more poorly aged aspects shouldn't really fly, then you could potentially give them the memory of a lifetime and their perfect first foray into this magical, elusive genre. And if you don't have kids, look at you! You don't need to worry about this shit! Go watch an awesome film where a werewolf gets kicked in the dick!
Wolfman's got nards.
Hey everyone, bit of a long message here. First of all, I am back. Please be sure to subscribe to my Only Dans for that hot Dan rambling action. And also, jokes aside, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. This is like what I want to be my big return to the channel. I'm excited about it, and if you followed me since my Geeky Glasses TV days, then this is going to be a whole new thing. Whole new name, whole new identity and style. I'm really hoping this change is coming across, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm Dan Drambles, glad to have you. I'd love it so much if you subscribed, hit that bell, maybe even shared it. I'm coming back into this thing kind of fresh, so all that stuff really helps me out. You can also see my socials on screen if you want to follow on those and stay up to date with stuff and what's coming up on the channel. If all goes to plan, there's going to be 30 of these videos, one every single day of this month, with a special extra something for Halloween itself. You'll notice as well I've launched a Patreon with this vid. This is because I've been planning this marathon for a long time now, and I've had to take a fair amount of time out of client work to make that happen. So I need to really get back to focusing on supporting myself financially after this marathon, which might mean I need to take another big break. I don't want to do that though, if at all possible, so I thought maybe launching that might be a good way to help me keep creating for you guys. Totally optional. You're not going to get locked out of any future videos if you don't patronise. Whatever happens with that will not affect this marathon. I'll already be well into the creation of the next episodes by the time you are hearing this. If you do want to support me on there though, holy shit, that would be amazing. Again, no pressure, but that'd be super cool and help the channel a lot. If you can't, no worries. Just liking and subscribing is also going to be amazing and help me out loads. Anyway, with the Patreon, I don't know what I'm putting up there yet, at least at the time of this recording. I've literally just launched it now, as in clicked it like 10 seconds before I hit record on Audacity to give you what you are hearing now. Maybe it's all polished and great by the time you see this video, so be sure to check it out. And yeah, that's kind of it. Hope you like what you're saying of this new direction, and I'll see you next episode.